9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Restore Freedom Weekly. I am constitutional attorney Katherine Henry, and we have, of course, Liberty Lori with us, as always. And just because of the nature of the beast here with how this program works, and it doesn't let me adjust sizes of screens and things like that, we have to put Lori in the background to help us monitor chat and whatnot today, just so that for those people who watch who are lip readers like I am, we can make my face just slightly bigger while we have the slideshow up next to us today. So, but before I throw Lori out and put her in timeout, I'm going to say hello to I can't even talk today. That's a great start. Hello to The Liberty Cause on YouTube, to Dale and John on YouTube. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. And just a reminder that with the way the technology works so far, and Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, I think at this point, if you are watching us on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitch live, and you want to comment or ask questions or whatnot, you could participate through any of those by commenting right in that particular social media platform in the comment section. However, I think it might be that Twitter, those don't pull through live. Does that sound about right, Lori?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything from Twitter yet.
Okay, so I think if you're commenting on Twitter and we're not seeing it right away or whatever, we're not trying to avoid you. It could just be, hopefully, Elon Musk will make the technology a little bit better and work with these streaming platforms a little bit better. But we're also hoping that the creators or tech geniuses behind Rumble are going to play nice a little bit better with the streaming platforms, because if you have ever used Rumble, you probably are well aware that you have to go live through a third-party platform like Melon, like we're using here. They don't have their own thing set up like Facebook or YouTube. But when you go live through those, then the comments don't pull through because it's just an RTMP connection and very old school, so to speak. So at any rate, Lori does her best to keep an eye on those Rumble comments and pull them over. And sometimes she just pastes them into the YouTube chat, so I can see them in the stream with all those others that come. So any last thoughts, Lori, before I banish you to timeout?
No.
All right.
I think you've covered it.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Lori. Okay, so I'm going to make myself a little bit bigger here, and that way you don't see all the chaos that goes into working on freedom here in the Henry household. So at any rate, like I said, I'm constitutional attorney Katherine Henry, and welcome to this week's episode of Restore Freedom Weekly. This is, I can't believe I'm saying this is officially season 1, episode 50. This is the final show of the season, final show of the year. And we will be right back at it in January. I'm probably getting ahead of myself. So before I do that, let's back up and tell you what this particular episode is all about. It's about equal protection violations by local government entities and how you can fight back. Okay, so with that being said, again, local government violating your right to equal protection, something we're going to take a look at today. Equal protection is guaranteed by every state constitution and the U.S. constitutions, yet local governments violate it regularly. What is an equal protection violation? How can you identify if your municipality is violating your right to equal protection? And we're also going to discuss ways that you can fight back if your municipality is in fact violating your right to equal protection. and we'll provide examples from real-life case documents, including a current battle currently waging right now. And again, this is the last episode of Restore Freedom Weekly in 2022, so thank you for joining us. Hello, Ryan on YouTube. Thanks for joining and commenting today. Don't forget, it is True or False Tuesday as well. And today's question is, it's very complicated to prove your local government is violating your right to equal protection. True or false? Make sure to head over to Twitter, Telegram, LinkedIn, Truth Social, our YouTube community section, or on our website, restorefreedomkh.com on the updates tab, or just simply type in restorefreedomkh.com/updates, and you'll be able to see the post from this morning that has the true or false question of the day. And if you go through our website, you don't need any social media or email or login or anything. You can just fill it out as it is. And of course, we do post the answer tonight at 10 o'clock. But if you're able to hang in there with us all the way through the episode today, then at the very end, you'll get the answer as well. And of course, it's always unfolded throughout the entire discussion. So, all right, let's get going. Now, stuff that I've been drilling into you guys all year long, and certainly in snippets here and there throughout the hundreds of presentations that I gave in 2020 and 2021. Let's see. First of all, before I get going, I will show a comment that we have from the Liberty Cause. The system makes it very difficult to prove how municipalities are violating our rights. In general, that is right. And we're going to look to see if that's really applicable specifically in the context of equal protection violations or not. So hang in there. But back into the basics, right? This is, again, I'm telling you guys, it doesn't matter what topic you're talking about. If you're talking about ordinances being applied in your own municipality, if you're talking about, issues with permitting or plot plans or, sign ordinances or noise ordinances or whatever it is, anything that you're dealing with in your state or local or even with the federal government, you need to remember these basics on every single topic. So governments are instituted to protect our God-given rights. And this is all stuff that we've talked about and gone over. And if you look at previous slides I've shared from prior weeks and in prior videos, we fully explain where we get this from. This isn't just Katherine Henry telling you something and expecting you to believe me. Nope, this is stuff that is verifiable, and the source to all of this has been fully discussed before and shared with you. We get our rights from God, not the government. You don't have to look to government to see what your rights are, okay? And government itself has no rights. And in fact, government only has the powers which we specifically delegate to it. We, the people, created our Constitution and our very form of government. And the U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land. That means no treaty, no federal, and that goes out to some of you have been commenting recently on Rumble. I don't remember the specific wording of the questions, but talking about different WHO regulations and things like that. But no treaty, no federal law, no state constitutional provision, no state law, no county or city ordinance, no government action, no executive order, no court order. Not a single thing that government does in any way, shape, or form can violate or be repugnant to the U.S. Constitution. If it is, it's void on its face. It's as though it never even existed, and you do not have to wait for some overpaid, over-credentialed men and women in black robes or in expensive suits and ties to tell you that. You don't have to wait for attorneys or judges to tell you something in particular is unconstitutional for you to act as though it's unconstitutional. So what does this mean? Government cannot act unless there is a specific power granted to it in the Constitution. Government is prohibited from doing anything that violates the U.S. or state constitutions. And a reminder that every single government official is sworn to uphold the U.S. Constitution and state constitution if it's a state official. So continuing the discussion here, just touching on those points, with a municipality, since we're talking about municipal governments today and they're violating equal protection, a municipality's powers, again, provide infrastructure, waterways, roadways, utilities, etc. Protect our individual liberties so that when I'm exercising my rights, I'm not interfering with your exercise of your rights. And a reminder that municipal governments cannot, their powers cannot and do not supersede individual rights. Again, from prior weeks in various different videos and discussions and episodes that we've done, talking about, for example, a homeowner's rights within a particular municipality. There's rights to equal protection, which we're obviously going to talk about today, rights to due process, privacy from the government, criminal rights, unenumerated rights, rights against bills of attainder. So again, that discussion that we've had in these last few weeks, so your municipality is trampling your rights. Now what? We've talked about writing them or issuing them or sending to them, serving them cease and desist letters, sending them notices of proposed litigation, urgently filing a lawsuit if you need to, speaking at your city council or city commission meetings, finding and joining with others that are similarly harmed, and issuing press releases and utilizing a specific strategic social media campaign to get your word out. And if you're thinking that all of these take a lot of money or they take, a team of attorneys or whatever, no. I've utilized all of these before, definitely all of these. And I have done so even before. I guess you could say that my fight for freedom in the local government really, really began as I was already thrust into it. I mean, it wasn't like a specific choice to, oh, now I'm going to take on local governments. Now I'm going to be this specific freedom fighter. In fact, at the time that I started having to respond to things and utilizing strategic social media campaigns and speaking at city council meetings, and what ended up in the urgent filing of a lawsuit that we're going to get into, I was on maternity leave. I had Emma, okay, and she's about to be 9 next month, so just over 1 month from today, and I basically had narrowed down my practice areas from a general practicing attorney down to family law, basic estate planning, and bankruptcies, because in Ionia, Montcalm counties in Michigan, that's the need. That was what was going to keep paying my bills and taking care of people in the community. So I was not geared up and an expert on open meetings acts or FOIAs or really anything. I wouldn't have considered myself a constitutional attorney by any stretch of the imagination. But you do what you got to do, and you read what you got to read, and you try your best, and you utilize strategies. And so I can tell you firsthand that I've used all these. So what are some of those rights that led to my situation? Well, we talked, I think this part was from last week. We talked about that you have the right to access government meetings. You have the right to free speech. You have the right, specifically in the Florida Constitution, you have the right to be heard at public meetings. You have the right to instruct your representatives. You have the right to peaceably assemble. You have the right to petition your government for a redress of grievances. You have the right to receive government documents. Okay? And those are all things that led to I was utilizing my rights to those things just as a citizen. Okay? I wasn't representing anybody. I wasn't getting paid. I wasn't specifically volunteering for a certain organization. I literally was astounded by what I had seen in government document requests, documents that were released as part of a FOIA request. And not even one that I made, but I started reading, and every week there was more and more. And I'm like, holy cow, what is this city manager doing? What is this city council doing, letting this city manager just run over people's rights like they don't even exist? I mean, if it inherently just feels wrong, trust your gut. Because again, people, I was not someone who would have thought of myself as a constitutional attorney. I wasn't someone who, at that point, I probably hadn't even read the entirety of the Michigan State Constitution, possibly not even the entirety of the U.S. Constitution. I couldn't tell you which section, or I couldn't even tell you at that point how many articles were in the U.S. Constitution. I couldn't tell you at that point how many articles were in the Michigan State Constitution. I had no idea what Article 1 was even about, let alone that it was the article of rights, talking about that we, the people, have all the political power. At any rate, so don't think that I'm just some sort of constitutional expert, and so therefore I've always been a constitutional expert, and that I'm, just, it's easy for me. No, I was a homeschooling mom who was out on maternity leave with my youngest child. I was trying to handle the cases that I was in the midst of, divorces and custody and parenting time. I was recertifying my mediation certificates and things like that so I could get back into the mediation world. That was the start of doing, thousands of mediations on, a yearly basis. People, I'm telling you, I was running my own ministry that has nothing to do with the freedom fight, but I'm just like you. And I was able to read some documents that somebody brought me. Somebody from the Chamber of Commerce just said, hey, we know each other, kind of, what are your thoughts on this? It just strikes me as this guy owns a landscaping business in the city of Belding in Michigan. And he said just something seemed off. So I did a FOIA request, and I just want your take on this. And it was a lot of pages, but lucky for him, I was sitting in a rocking chair a lot of hours of the day back then. And I said, okay, I'll take a look. And I was flabbergasted. I was disgusted. I was shocked at the things that I was seeing in this FOIA request. And so then I decided, okay, I'm going to start going to these city council meetings, and I'll just let them know. I'll just use my 3 minutes of public comment time just to kind of talk about some of these things. Maybe they don't realize what's really happening. Maybe they don't realize what the law is. I gave them the benefit of the doubt. And I was nervous as all get out. I don't like speaking in public. And I hadn't done it really ever at that point. I mean, now I've stood up and spoken on the steps of the Capitol, and I've argued in front of the Michigan Supreme Court, and I've had thousands of people watching me live in various different venues. And so I'm a little bit slightly more used to it, but I still don't like it. Back then, I hadn't done any of that yet. So I'm standing up there as someone who's a little chunkier than she normally would have been, because I had a little baby at home, and just not all comfortable as it was. But I would sit in these horribly uncomfortable chairs and wait for my turn for public comment. And I would get up there nervous as all get out and probably sweating a little bit, and then get myself oriented to the people that were up there. And we're talking a town of 5,000 people, right? I shouldn't have been that nervous, right? I mean, but it's nerve-wracking. And the press started coming more and more, granted small town press, but press nonetheless. And I started speaking out and saying, hey guys, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but you can't do this. And here's the law that says you can't. And so this is what you could do to fix it. Why don't you guys address that? And then, 2 weeks would go by and there'd be another city council meeting and nothing would have been done on that. And something else horrible would have happened. And so I would talk about that. And then I would talk. And so then I was starting to get really angry. I'm like, guys, what the hell are you doing? I've come to you every week talking about how clearly in the documents that have been submitted as part of your meeting packets, I mean, there are documents everybody has access to. you can clearly see that the rights of various citizens are being violated. Not even mine at that point, just other people I didn't even know. I said, I've never even heard of most of these people, but it's not okay what's happening. I'm telling you exactly what statute is being violated. And I'm telling you exactly what the law says you could do to fix it. And you guys aren't doing anything. You're just letting the city manager run rampant all over our laws. This is not okay. So I started going more and more. And that city manager, Meg Mullendore, brand new city manager of Belding back then in 2014, was, I was excited when she got there at first because our city manager had retired and we needed somebody with a lot of energy and could, revitalize Belding and bring people in and bring businesses in. And she seemed to do that. She seemed to be that person. And so when I started seeing all this stuff, and it's ticking me off that city council then is letting her do this stuff. I don't care if you think of yourself as a country bumpkin who's, just serving on the local city council because whatever, because, somebody asked you to do it, or because you just felt like it was your turn to serve in some capacity, or whatever the case is. If you're on that board, you are tasked with following the Constitution and the laws, and you better damn well make sure that you're, not violating our protections against equal protection violations. So at any rate, they tried to stop me from speaking at meetings. They tried to stop me from going to a few of the meetings. They tried to stop me from being heard. Definitely tried to stop me from instructing my representatives. The subsequent lawsuit that I filed got a little interesting, but that's a whole nother discussion for another time. They definitely tried to stop our rights to peaceably assemble, to petition the government for redress of grievances, and tried to stop my right to get more public documents. So again, these are just some of the concepts here. I have on this screen about our right to peaceably assemble and petition the government for redress of grievances, and the right to instruct representative, just some examples of where you can find those in the state and U.S. constitutions. And let's see. So again, we've talked about this for the last couple weeks. We talked with Joel Ibbotson about the city of Hastings and some of the battles currently waging right there. I've talked a little bit about some of the things that I was doing from the inside out from Georgetown Township when I served as a township trustee. And we are going to get into a little bit more of the city of Ormond Beach issues, but I'm going to start with the city of Belding, and that's what we've been talking about so far. First of all, let's look at, ZXL Master, thank you so much for joining us today on YouTube. So let's look at what is equal protection. Okay, I know you guys have heard all these terms, right? You've heard of due process, you've heard of equal protection, you've heard free speech, you've heard, religious freedom, all this kind of stuff, right? You've heard of these things, and I have something tickling my nose. I hope I'm not going to sneeze, but anyway, you've heard of all these terms, but do you really know what they mean? I mean, most people don't know what they mean. And I could tell you that I really didn't feel like I knew what they meant until I really started digging. And it's just something that felt wrong. It felt like, wait a minute, why are you doing this to me? There's all these other people out there. So start with your instincts. Our questions, I'm going to get back to that just for a second here. So yes, our questions today. What is an equal protection violation? We're going to talk about that. And then how can you identify if your municipality is violating your rights? That I'm going to jump to just for a second and say, trust your instincts. Does it feel like it's being applied fair? Any kindergartner can tell you that. I worked in a school system, K through 4th grade, and every single student, it didn't matter if they had a developmental disability or a super high IQ, fully functioning, gifted, level program, every student in between. Every level, kindergarten, middle school, high school, certainly as adults, everyone can identify, does that feel fair? Does it just feel fair? If it doesn't feel fair, start with that. Trust your gut and go from there. So, all right, so equal protection. The wording is from the 14th Amendment. No state shall deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. First of all, let's focus on this in a way that I've never heard other people really focus on this. So let's take a minute. Equal protection. You could see this on the slide here. And for those of you that are listening on the podcasting platforms, again, just as with every week, you will find the Constitution segment recap video and audio, I guess, that will be on Thursday. You'll see in the description of that segment the link to this particular slideshow, so you'll be able to reference all of this material at your own pace later on, starting on Thursday. So don't worry about that. But anyway, I've underlined the word protection. It's equal protection of the laws. Why? Because it's government's job to protect our rights, so that in my exercise of my rights, I'm not infringing upon your exercise of your rights. Laws are literally there to protect us in our exercise of our God-given liberties. Laws are not there to supposedly give us rights. Laws aren't there to regulate our every single move. That's not what their purpose is. That's what they've become. But that's not what the Constitution allows. So let's literally read it word for word. It is equal protection of the law. But moving on to the equal side of it, no state shall deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. What does that really mean? Well, basically, it's simple. It's as simple as what it says. It guarantees that people who are similarly situated are treated similarly. Okay? Because sometimes it makes sense to have a rule or a regulation or law or an ordinance or something at the state, federal, local level, doesn't matter, that might, on the face, might seem to treat people differently. But if you really look at, are those people similarly situated? Are they being treated similarly? That's really the biggest question. Okay. So I wanted to also remind you, like I started off with, that equal protection is guaranteed in every state constitution as well. It's worded a little bit differently from constitution to constitution, but the Florida Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, all natural persons are equal before the law. Michigan Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, no person shall be denied equal protection of the laws. Even in California, where they act like you don't have any rights whatsoever, Article 1, Section 7, a person may not be denied equal protection of the laws. Texas, Article 1, Section 3 and 3A, equal rights and equal equality under the law. The New York Constitution, also a place where freedom goes to die these days. Article 1, Section 11, no person shall be denied the equal protection of the laws. And basically what I wanted to remind you of is that was just the recap of the four largest states across the entire U.S. plus the state of Michigan. So those 5 states all have that example of how equal protection is cemented in there. If you are in another state, feel free to take a look and get that information, but it's in there. You might just have to look. Okay, so every government official is required to take the oath of office. I know you've heard me say that already today. You've heard me say that in pretty much every video that I've done. Here's just some examples again for that constitutional oath, because you're dealing with local government officials who will often say, well, I don't know about that. I'm not some attorney. So I'm certainly no constitutional attorney. I'm just here to do my job, and I'm following procedures, and this is the requirement. You have to follow this. You have to follow that. Well, this is what the ordinance says. I don't give a crap what an ordinance says. If an ordinance violates the U.S. Constitution, remind that person at the desk. Remind them, even if they're just a simple little pencil pusher, or they're the lead guy making all the decisions in the building department for your city. It doesn't matter. Either way, they have to take a constitutional oath of office. So you look at them and say, that's funny. You talk a lot about this code, which I don't think it says what you think it says. But even if it did you take an oath to uphold the code of the city of fill in the blank, Ormond Beach, Or did you take an oath when you started your position to uphold the U.S. and Florida state constitutions? Because I'm pretty sure it was the second one. In fact, here again, remember, even if you're just a registered voter in the state of Florida, you have to take an oath to uphold and defend the U.S. and state constitution just to vote here, let alone to work in government. Okay? So don't be afraid to remind them of this. Every single person that you're encountering any of these issues with, I don't care if they say to you, well, I don't know what the law is. In fact, I know they're going to tell you that because that's happened to me. Watch the video of what happened to me on election day 2020 when I got beat up by 3 grown men who had badges and are supposedly deputies in the Allegheny County Sheriff's Department. They told me straight up, oh, that's not my job. Oh, you can have your day in court. Really? You're law enforcement, but you're telling me it's not your job to know what the law is before you attempt to enforce it? I don't think so. And anyone who's administrative in nature, any government official, they're in one of the 3 branches. Just keep in mind that most of those administrative types of positions where they couldn't even tell you what branch they're in, most of those are in the executive branch. What is the executive branch's job? To enforce the laws, starting with the supreme law of the land, the Constitution of the United States, followed by the Constitution of your state. That is their job. So anyway, with the city of Belding, like I said, I had submitted FOIA requests. Other people had submitted FOIA requests to get information, Freedom of Information Act, in case your state does not have that and you haven't heard that term. And I was speaking at city council meetings, like I mentioned. Then there were threats to shut us up. So the city manager did not like, and the mayor at the time also, he was elected, she was not. They didn't like that there was a handful of us speaking out at every single meeting and respectfully talking about what the law required, talking about actual facts, giving them specific action items. We didn't just go up there and start yelling and swearing at them or whatever. None of that. It was, hey, this can't be done this way. The law says you got to do it this way. So why don't you fix it by doing this? Okay, let's make things a better place. Let's follow the law. So the city manager literally said to the chief of the fire department that she had this list that she was going to start coming after, no joke, her words, all of us who'd been speaking out. And of course, she identified the person that she was going to start with and make an example of, the person who was at the top of her list. Yep, that was me. So I was proudly wearing that badge of bring it. You can figure out what word I was going to say next there. So yes, she started coming after me for a variety of things. She really couldn't do much to me because I take my oath seriously, so I uphold the Constitution. And even though I wasn't a self-proclaimed freedom fighter and constitutional advocate back then, I still was an attorney. I had already been licensed to practice in 5 or 6 jurisdictions by that point. And I had already been sworn in on various boards in city government. So yeah, I have taken that oath of office several times and I take it seriously. So anyway, she started with home occupation because at the time I had my law firm. We had moved from the Belding Mall. That's where my office had been for quite a while. We moved out of there and into our new home in the city of Belding because we had, well, when we moved in there, we had 3 kids and they needed to not have to spend hours and hours at my office after school. They could be home playing and doing homework and chores and whatever. And so we bought a bigger house and moved my office home. And I'm an attorney. It's not like I opened up a store or, you know, some kind of shop or something. Clients would come one at a time, if at all. A lot of clients I never even met with at the house. When I was serving as a public defender, none of those clients ever came to my house. I went and met with them in the jail or at the courthouse or whatever. A lot of things we did over the phone. That was, of course, before Zoom and video conferencing became the thing. At any rate, so there was a home occupation ordinance on the books. But once she started coming after me for that, saying I needed to have a special permit for that, and I didn't have the permit. I started driving around going, but wait, that's a daycare center. That's a haircutting place out of somebody's home. That's an accountant. That's a bookkeeper. That person does Avon. That person sells baked goods. And you could go down the list of all these people who had home occupations. They worked out of their house. Again, this was long before COVID. But especially in small towns, there's a lot of people that have a little, maybe they work at a factory in town, but they also have a side job selling Tupperware or whatever. It's a home occupation ordinance, right? So I did a FOIA request, and at first they were denying it, but it didn't appear to me that anybody had ever gotten one of those permits. And when they finally, through this federal lawsuit that we ended up in, finally released the FOIA results to me, guess what? I FOIA'd all the way back to the year 2000, and they had only ever even issued, let alone received an application for, one home occupation application, one. So they issued that permit, and that had been several years prior to this. And it was because it was food service industry related, and it was a requirement from the state that in order to get the final go ahead with the state, they had to have this permit for the location use by the city. And so they got a home occupation permit. That was it. One out of all of them that you could easily drive around, just take pictures, which I did. We'll get into that. Facebook group. So in the midst of this, I told you I've utilized these strategies. In fact, let me go back to those strategies real quick. Okay. Your municipality is trampling your rights. Now what can you do? What are some options? Again, we talked about strategic social media campaigns. Well, especially back then, this is, going on 10 years ago, I had a website I started, everythingbuilding.com. I had a lot of information on there. It was good stuff. It was the bad stuff. It was everything. Way for local businesses to advertise, to people in the community, you name it. Community events, we had everything on there. But I also started putting the documents from the meetings and links to videos from the meetings and you name it. But a lot of people still didn't have a way to find it. But what they could easily find was my Facebook group, Citizens Holding Belding City Government Accountable. I made a group, and we had hundreds of people in there who immediately were not little Facebook bots. No, they were actual people, and they wanted to know what was going on. They wanted to see the truth about everything. So we utilized that method, and there was robust discussion. Sometimes there were people that would say not so nice things, and I would moderate it to a certain degree, but basically saying, hey, we don't need to call names to anybody on either side of this issue. Anyway, so at one point, Jeff Hunter was an individual that had been commenting in ways that the city manager deemed divisive. Okay. And so because of his comment or his post or whatever it was, I think it was his comment on my post, she literally screenshotted that or quoted it and used that to try to remove me from serving on the Downtown Development Authority Board and on the Planning Commission. And I was shocked that they were trying to remove me from serving on those volunteer, right? I wasn't getting paid. I was volunteering, and she was trying to remove me because of comments that some other person, not in my household, not in my close circle of friends. This dude later on ended up vandalizing some of my signs when I was running for state rep. So, I mean, we were not the best of friends, but she was claiming that because I started the group, that I was then somehow responsible for his divisive comments, and that dividing kind of nature was bad for business. And so I shouldn't be on any kind of city government boards. Well, I sued the crap out of her. So that goes back to that slide. What can you do? I filed a lawsuit. The night that I got the city, I remember that very clearly. The night that the police officer came and delivered my meeting packet for the Planning Commission, which was going to happen in just 3 days afterwards. It was the 76-page packet, mostly about me. Could you imagine that? What does my Facebook life or my home occupation or anything have to do with the Planning Commission. That's talking about, recommendations to the city council for changing zoning ordinances, or recommendations on, variances that would go to the zoning board of appeals, or a variety of things, creating the city's master plan and how we would utilize different features like parks or activities for residents or whatever. That's what the Planning Commission is supposed to do. What kind of businesses we want to draw into the community. So at any rate, when she tried to do that to me 3 days before the meeting, 76-page packet, like, how am I going to get through all that? I read the whole damn thing, and then I was like, that's it. I'm suing this crazy because I'm not messing around anymore. So I did. I spent the next, I don't even know, couple of days, I don't remember, but it was like nonstop at my computer typing. And my mom and I think my grandma were visiting, and they're like, what's up? You're like working on, as I don't have a choice. So before that meeting, I had finished drafting the whole thing. So it must have been the 3 days. I finished drafting. What did I sue her for? Well, declaratory relief. We can get into the details of that later. But basically, when I did apply, I went ahead and started to jump through their hoops. I even paid the $50 for their stupid home occupation application fee, which they accepted, by the way. But then they denied me, saying I had to fill out a certain form to get this permit. I was like, no. The code doesn't say anything about that. You're making up shit as you go along. Then they said I had to pay this fee. They also said I needed a plot plan. So I needed to, get an architect or an engineer to come out and do this whole big plot plan where every tree was, and all the parking and fences and buildings and sheds, and, where the neighboring parcels were, and utilities. And I'm like, I got to do what so that I can just continue working out of my house? No, that's not required. That's not in the code, nor should it be. I'm not speaking to every city code. Maybe some have that. Maybe things like the city of Ormond Beach, but we won't go there. Also, I sued the crap out of her for malicious prosecution, abuse of process, of course, equal protection violations, defamation. She was defaming me, and it was libel because it was in print and broadcast in the media. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. They did some crazy ass stuff. Even it got worse as the lawsuit went on. You wouldn't even believe the stuff that was happening, but you got to stand your ground. And I didn't have anybody helping me with this, not a single person. At that point, I no longer had paid staff because I was working out of my house. So I did this all on my own. Again, this was not my area of expertise. None of these things were my areas of expertise. I just looked it up, did research, and did my best and put it all together. Again, they had violated my right to receive documents under the Freedom of Information Act. There was huge free speech infringement. Okay, so lots of stuff, right? But this is what I sued for. Of course, their attorney, her overpriced attorney, paid with my tax dollars because I sued her in her official capacity as city manager and as an individual person because she stepped outside of the bounds of what the law allowed her to do. So I sued her individually as well. And somehow my tax dollars paid for one singular attorney to represent her throughout the whole thing and all of her interests. Of course, one of the first things he did, which you would have to be prepared for, is I filed it in state court. And you should have seen the looks on the clerks' faces when I filed that, because small town area, they knew me. I was an attorney in that courthouse, for a lot of cases, but it was well received. And anyway, I was nervous as all get out. I'll never forget that. I can envision the drive all the way down to the courthouse to file this thing. I don't know if you know Rascal Flatts. It's like my favorite band of all time, country music. And there's a song, I think it's Stand is the name of the song. And it's a song that can help give you courage when you got to do something that you just don't know that you have the strength to do. And that luckily was playing on my radio on the drive down. And it helped because I didn't want to have to do this. Who was I with no paid staff, fairly young, was in my, maybe I had just turned 30. I had my own law practice. I'd only been in that community for a few years. I'd been on the other side of the state. I was in Minnesota before that. My husband, knew a lot of people, but very quiet kind of guy, not like a lot of big, powerful connections, in terms of that. So it was just me. It was just me fighting this. I didn't have friends and family supporting me in this. It was just me, and it was nervous as all get out. I was as nervous as all get out, but I did it anyway. Drove down there and I filed it, and then I felt better having it filed. And what I did is I put the complaint, which you guys have access to because I shared this a few weeks ago again, Freedom Fighting Tools. But that lawsuit document, that complaint, I laid it all out. I didn't just, plead a little bit of stuff and allude to things and then just, no, I was like, nope. She did this, they did this, they did this. Here's the law, here's the facts. I submitted documents. There's like 300 pages I filed for this complaint. I gave them copies of meeting packets. I gave them, clippings from the newspaper articles where she was quoted talking about me or disparaging me or whatever, right? You name it. I put it in there. The FOIA documents, I put it all in there. I was like, yeah, you need to know what's coming. I don't have anything to hide. I'll win just on the facts as they are. I don't need to play surprise games and make you wait for discovery and all that stuff. No. Well, of course, her overpriced attorney, as soon as he was hired, the first thing he did is, without even notifying me first, no professional courtesy, nothing, he goes and moves it to federal district court. And it's a scare tactic, right? Oh my gosh, here's this small town attorney and now this case is being moved to federal court. Oh my gosh, right? I was licensed in federal district court, that exact one. In fact, it's the same courthouse that Ryan Kelly was taken to this summer. And, same building that I had gone into to help him out in his hearing this June. Same exact place. So I just said, well, you know what? Thanks for moving it, I guess, because now I don't have to pay motion filing fees. And I ended up filing 4 different motions. So it saved me $20 each. I did have to pay extra on gas and I had to pay for parking. But, shoot, just be ready for whatever they're going to throw at you. But you can do this. Okay. So what about the proving part? So again, we talked about what is an equal protection violation. Are you being treated differently under the law? It's as simple as that. How can you identify if your municipality is violating your right to equal protection, though? It's as simple as that. Start with your gut. Does it feel like something that's happening everywhere else? Then how can you fight back, right? How can you fight back? How can you identify that it's happening and how can you fight back? Well, in the City of Belden case, in terms of proving that equal protection part, right? I sued for a bunch of things, but as far as the equal protection goes, and again, these are documents you guys have. There was no other home occupation ordinance enforcement since at least the year 2000. On that alone, it's pretty obvious. You can't just pick me and enforce it against me because that's literally all you have. I didn't even have a parking ticket. That's all you have is this home occupation ordinance. You can't use it just against one person. Also, the city, the defendant's actions in trying to remove me, this part, I literally copied and pasted this right out of my complaint. They tried to remove me from the Planning Commission despite other commissioners also having home occupations and no home occupation permit. So people on the exact same board I was serving on also were working out of their houses with no permit, but they wanted to come after me and only me for not having this permit. It gets easier and easier to prove these, guys. Don't think of this as something so overwhelming you can't possibly defend yourself without an overpriced attorney. No, you can do this. This is one of the easiest things you can prove. Defendant's actions, the city, in trying to remove me from the Planning Commission despite another commissioner, and also he was on the city council. He was on the Planning Commission with me and he was on the city council. He had repeated and continuing violations of a recreational vehicle storage ordinance. So there was an ordinance on the books that you couldn't have your RV parked in your front yard. It could be in your backyard or your side yard, but it couldn't be in your front yard. And this particular commissioner, who also was on city council, he lived on the main road that ran through town, M44. And so it was a little hard to miss it, right? He had his RV parked there day in and day out for years. I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Okay. It's just such horrible stuff that I'm allergic to it. But it might seem simple. That wasn't what they were coming after me for. But I'm like, yo, if you're going to try to get me off of a board because you think I'm violating this benign ordinance, which even if I am, how about the fact that this other board member is also on city council and he's blatantly violating some ordinances, and there's no mention of taking him off of those boards. So what's the difference here? Okay, I'm going to pause for just a second. And ZXL Master pointed out that he's correcting me, saying that everyone's tax dollars paid for it. True, but it pissed me off that I was harmed, so I sued, and it's my tax dollars, along with my neighbors, obviously, who had to pay for that. It's just a double whammy when, you know, you're the one footing the bill on both sides. So anyway, yeah, I am human, a very imperfect human. Oh, hello to Lisa on I think it's Facebook. Well, I can't tell. No, you're on LinkedIn. Okay, so LinkedIn comments are working. And thank you for joining us today on LinkedIn. All right. Hopefully, I am not missing any other comments or questions. I know there's some conversations back and forth with you guys here, but at any rate, so it's as simple as that. Even if somebody's not violating the same ordinance, but they're just getting away with violating ordinances, that's still a problem. If they're going to come after you and single you out for something, but then they're not going to worry about other people that are similarly situated, they're not going to treat them similarly, that's the problem. All right, let's jump to, and by the way, I'll show you these documents, but this program unfortunately does not allow me to share multiple screens, I don't think. Let me see if I can add the other one. Oh, all right, I'm gonna flip back and forth. Sweet. Okay, so I just gotta make this bigger for you guys. How the heck am I gonna do that? Let's see. Well, nope, it's still. Okay. I got to make it smaller on my side to make it bigger for what you can see. Very strange, but whatever. That is what it is. Okay, so so I'm going to first tell you guys that, oh, okay, all small. All right, so the first one that this is the one that I originally filed. This is literally the copy that I filed. That's why there's no court file number. There's no judge listed here because that stuff was all printed out or, filled in by pen when I brought it to the courthouse. But you can see I sued her as an individual and as a city manager. And you'll see I just laid everything out. You have your facts, you have the parties. I do have if you click on this document and you open up a halfway decent PDF reader, you'll be able to see the bookmarks. And I bookmarked each of the sections for you so you can go back and forth between them. In fact, on here, give me a second. Stretch this back out. Equal protection violations. So you could see all of this information is what I put in here. I quoted law, but then I talked about the facts, about, people being treated differently than others being similarly situated. Okay. So anyway, good stuff in here. Like I laid out a lot of stuff, not just applicable to Michigan. Some of this stuff is from federal statutes and from the federal U.S. Constitution. So even if you're in another state, Florida, California, you name it, there's good stuff in here that you might want to use. In fact, I forgot how good this is. And there's stuff in there that I might need to add to my current situation, which let's go ahead and pop over here. So the first thing I did, so I'm going to show this one again. So notice of proposed lawsuit. So, oops, yeah, okay. So I recently, on election day this year, November 8th, 2022, I filed or served on them, the city that I live in, a notice of proposed action. That's what it's called. So I'm basically saying to them, hey, I'm seriously considering filing a lawsuit against you. You might want to do something to fix this now. There's a provision specifically in Florida law that says you could do this, and then they're required to give you a response. I also created a cease and desist letter. I basically used the same document to make it into a cease and desist letter. And in some areas, there may be an actual legal requirement, like, oh, a cease and desist letter, in order for it to work, it has to, do this, this, and that, or whatever. In Florida and Michigan, it doesn't have to be signed by an attorney. It doesn't have to be notarized. There's no specific requirements in any law that I found. So you can just write it yourself. You want to have some basics. We could talk about that in another video, but at any rate, it's something you can just write a letter, keeping it simple, straightforward, but put it all in there. What are they doing wrong? What do you want them to stop doing? Why do they need to stop doing it? And what will happen if they don't stop doing it? Those are the basics. That's a cease and desist letter. And then as far as proving the violation, though, again, there were multiple things that I had. I'm going to go back to, oh, that's not the right screen. My bad. Give me a second, guys. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this one. And this one doesn't have the bookmarks, but it has a table of contents that is clickable. You click in any decent PDF viewer, you'll be able to click anywhere in the table of contents and it'll jump you down to that particular section. But you can see here, I just laid it out, there unreasonable searches and seizures, eminent domain.
Your screen's not showing.
My screen is
the
not
one I think that you're on. Weren't you? Yeah.
That one. Yeah. I'm not always that bright. What can I say?
That's okay.
Thank you, Lori. All right. So, and it's messing with my whatever. So I'm super tiny. I apologize for any of you who are lip readers that I'm now way too small for you to probably see my face. And Lori just fixed it back for me. Okay. So anyway, you could see the different, there was a violation of, they're trying to exercise eminent domain over my property by telling me I can't do things on my own property. They're exceeding their authority. I told them what the purpose of government is, just like I tell you every week. I told them our rights come from God, not the government. I never would have done that before. Honestly, I never would have done that before because it just seems like, well, can't talk about God, right? And, can't tell the government too much about, that they're not powerful. And no, screw that. Tell them the truth. Tell them exactly what's up. They need to know our rights come from God, not the government. They need to know the source of authority in government, we the people. They need to know that our use of our property, this was as applied to this situation, I told them our use of our property does not infringe upon a neighbor's use of their own property. Even HOAs, and we talked about this a few weeks back too, even homeowners associations, HOAs, that are created by private contracts or covenants, even they have to respect homeowner rights. You can't just tell them, they can't fly an American flag or whatever, right? Anyway, then I talked about the actual land development code, etc. But again, this is something you can look at and click on. But here's my notice of proposed action. Now, really, the only one that's I'm required, and if I want to use this statute, that I'm required to do it this way, was Florida Statute 70.45. So I underlined it for them. I underlined it because I guarantee they've never seen something like this come from one of their residents when they've tried to enforce an ordinance against a resident. And certainly they have no reason to necessarily think that I'm an attorney or that I know what I'm talking about or that I'm going to research the crap out of this situation and show them exactly what's up. So I made it easy. And I put in here, there's more statutes that I cited for other reasons, but these ones are the ones that basically give me the right to sue them. They committed burglary because they came on my property. They committed, they're trying to exercise a taking. They're trying to, whatever. So all these things in here. I have statutes. I have constitutional pieces. I have federal statutes, 42 USC section 1983. That's available to all of you in every part of our country. And then these 14th, 4th, 5th, and 9th Amendments. Okay, so let's see. I have missed a little bit. There was a comment on Rumble. I wanted to pause real quick. From Rumble, what was the relief you asked for and received in my lawsuit? Okay, so for the city of Belding, that one was the one that's like done and over with. I asked for several things. I will actually just go to that really quick. At the beginning or at the end of each section, I said what I was asking for. So I requested at the end of the equal protection section, for example, that the court enter a judgment against the city, the defendant, in an amount consistent with the damages sustained. So that wasn't very specific. I later on had to give them a dollar amount that I was suing for that. But there are other things that I asked for. So anyway, if you go all the way down to it's hard on my side because I had to shrink the windows so small just so it would get bigger on your guys' side. But there's a section, damages and other relief. So I was asking for the court to issue a declaratory judgment to let the city know, hey, application specific form, you can't require that. Plot plan, that's not required. Paying this fee, that's unenforceable in the context of home occupations. I asked them to give me my $50 back that I paid for the home occupation permit. I was asking for a permanent injunction against the city for using any resident's constitutionally protected speech against them for any governmental purpose, such as removing them from public office, unless that speech is deemed as a violation of law. Let's see. I also asked, what else did I ask for? I asked for money damages. So I asked for several things. It's laid out here in this document. Again, it's, if you want to go to search the keyword Belding, B as in boy, BELDING on our website, restorefreedomkh.com, go to that search bar, type in Belding, and it'll show up probably several things, but certainly the freedom fighting tools from last week or the week before, you'll see the link to this document and you can open it up and check it out. What I ended up getting, well, in the end, she ended up getting fired. So she was gone. That was the biggest thing. Also, the city council and all the boards had to do training on open meetings and FOIA. And I at least got my filing fee refunded back to me. We settled for $250 because I didn't want to deal with it anymore. And she was gone. And I needed to move on to the next thing. And it was my tax dollars paying for it anyway. It's not like she was going to be personally on the hook because, mind you, during the time, she also had filed for personal bankruptcy. So chances of me being able to collect on someone who was now unemployed and already going through bankruptcy proceedings because she couldn't pay her bills, she was having her car repoed and everything, there was no way I was going to, collect on that. So at any rate, jumping back to this, okay, I think I'm caught up on any questions and comments. If I'm not, hopefully Lori will jump in and snatch me there. But at any rate, I let them know that state law requires Ormond Beach to respond in writing to my notice to them. This is just the cover page. This is the front page of what I sent them, right? That's the whole thing right there. And in the middle, I tell them that this law, the state law, requires them to respond to my notice in writing with no less than a statement that no further action will be taken by Ormond Beach against us, or a statement where they have to fully identify the specific harm created by our proposed use of our own property. They'd have to show what harm, how are we harming anybody in the community? And the law in Florida is, this is great. It also their statement would have to fully explain how each of their exactions, each of the ways that they're trying to stop us from using our property as we want to, how each one of those provisions or requirements is proportionate to the specific harm that we're creating by laying down pavers, by having a storage unit, by putting a privacy fence up. How am I harming anybody? And I told them, depending on the further actions of Ormond Beach, if we have to file an action in court, it may be filed in state or federal court. I'm not sure which one I'd want to go to. It just depends, but I'm prepared for either. So I'm letting their counsel know, bring it, state or federal, I'm prepared. You have to be prepared too. You have to just know inherently those slides I put up at the beginning of this show today. You got to know that stuff to be true, because it is. We don't get our rights from government. We get them from God. Government has no rights. Government can only do what it is we've specifically given them the power to do by a grant of that power in the Constitution. Those are key concepts you just need to remember. If you just read over the slideshow that we're going to share again with you this Thursday, if you just read over that and you're comfortable with those key basic concepts, that's what it takes. The confidence in those basic concepts, that's it. The rest can fall into place. The specific state laws, whatever. I have OCD. I'm going to over-research the crap out of this thing to show them exactly all 675 different reasons for how they are wrong in what they're doing. And so that I also, again, this part of my cease and desist, you can't actually see where I'm pointing on my screen unless I use the mouse, go figure. But the notice to cease and desist, it's pretty simple and straightforward and something that you can do. As Ormond Beach has violated numerous laws, which are detailed below, so I, did all the response and the explanation in just one big thing. This notice serves to inform you, meaning all Ormond Beach employees and officials, that you must immediately cease and desist all land development code actions being taken against Michael and/or Katherine Henry. Failure to do so will result in legal action being taken against you in your official capacity and individual capacity, as continuation of these actions constitutes actions done under the color of law without actual authority. Color of law means it's like, think of it as they just had a big crayon and they're writing up, oh, this is what the law says I could do. They're coloring it in as they go along, right? They don't actually have the authority in the law to do what they're doing. They're making up the law with their own crayon as they go along. And so then you can sue them and go after them in their individual capacity, not just as someone who's, a city manager or city attorney or whatever. Of course, I couldn't help myself. I did sign it as Katherine Henry, constitutional attorney, admitted in the United States Supreme Court and 4 additional jurisdictions. Because why not? But you can sign it however you want to. Sign it, you're a constitutional advocate. You are a homeowner. You're a concerned citizen or resident. However, put confidence in whatever your station in life is. Put confidence in your signature. Let them know I'm damn proud of who I am, of what I've accomplished, what I know or don't know, and I know that you're in the wrong. I know that you cannot violate the law and you cannot violate the Constitution anymore in this regard. Now, I realize that I probably have a little bit more influence in my signature than you might have if you are a school bus driver and, a substitute teacher or a trash collector or whatever. And you feel like, well, gosh, I can't put, all of that kind of stuff behind my signature. No, but like I said, don't be afraid to stand on who you are and what you bring to the table. And so anyway, like I said, there's a bunch of different things that I sued them for. But if we jump right to the equal protection issues, first, and I'm going to show this other one. Okay. So the first thing is, if any of you were following me from summer of last year, of 2021, if you were already following me then, you saw that I didn't do a lot of videos in the last half of 2021 because we were down here and trying to get settled. We had been buying a house down here, and per the contract, had to finish doing a lot of stuff. Okay. The sellers were shady. It was a game from the beginning. They were never intending to sell it to us. They wanted us to have to do all the work, but they never pulled the permits, even though the contract clearly says they had to pull all the permits and close them out and do whatever, get the inspections lined up. We were doing all the work. And at any rate, they didn't think that the contract meant anything and never pulled the permits. They don't think the rules apply to them. Well, at any rate, the city came in and they enforced it against us, right? So some random complaint was made to the city that we were doing all kinds of work to this house without a permit. But they, the city enforcement people, neighborhood improvement division, came by and put a stop work order in the yard and said, you can't do anything else here. I mean, we were days before the closing and the final appraisal inspection needed to be done. That's why this was happening. It's all part of their scheme. At any rate, they saw we were actually about to finish and we were going to be able to close on time. They're like, well, whoa, we never actually really wanted to sell this property. So they tried to play a bunch of games. And so days before closing, all of a sudden the city shows up and says, nope, you can't finish things. You can't do it. Nope, you don't have any permits. Of course, I said, well, I'll go down there and fill up the damn permit. What do I need to do? Tell me. Oh, no, you're not the owner. Oh, you only have a contract. I mean, contracts are just paper, right? No, they were dumb about it. And they wouldn't let me fill out the permits. And then the permits that were on the books with the city, the sellers canceled those. So those contractors that were getting ready to put $20,000 in on a particular project left. They had been there and they left because the owners said, nope, we want all the permits canceled that are out there. So the city enforced it against us, right? Then we ended up in this battle in court. I ended up filing something in the 5th District Court of Appeals even because we ended up with a temporary judge assigned right after our attorney that I actually hired, another attorney down here in Florida. He was our age, super smart guy, well respected in the community, died in a freak accident. I mean, our life was a shitstorm for a long time in 2021. And at any rate, he died and the court gave us no time to find another attorney. So within days, we're having this hearing and the other side, the sellers, they actually filed the lawsuit. Get this. They sued us the day before closing to say we failed to go to closing and we weren't going to close. You're suing us before the closing to kick us out, claiming we didn't close, but closing is not yet. It didn't happen yet, and we're ready to close. So anyway, we ended up with a judge who literally said he had no idea what was happening, no idea about this type of law, but he doesn't think that we should be able to stay at the house while the lawsuit is going on, which is total garbage. He violated the law. In many different ways. And any attorney around would tell you that because trust me, I talked to about 50 of them, 50 or 60. We made a lot of phone calls trying to get somebody to fill in when our attorney passed away. Anyway, so we ended up having to temporarily vacate the house. As soon as we did that, the sellers went in and claimed that they now owned all of our material, all of our belongings that were still in the house. The tens of thousands of dollars of windows, doors, tubs, lighting fixtures, sinks, toilets, shower walls, whatever, you name it. Tens of thousands of dollars. Okay. I had just picked up another $9,700 of material from Lowe's when the sellers started this BS the Thursday before closing. I was literally in Lowe's picking up that package of $9,700. Anyway. So they claim that they can do whatever they want to our stuff. They ended up within days getting a whole new like 22-foot dumpster, parking it right in the front driveway, and which they had done before we got there. They had a dumpster and nobody said anything. City didn't say anything. Neighbors didn't say anything, whatever. Complaint comes right before closing for us. And then once we're out of the house temporarily and we're stuck in a motel, right? We're homeless, trying to figure out what the heck's going on. How is this happening? They're not following the laws at all down here. The city, then I let them know, hey, they have a dumpster out there. I don't know what they're doing, but they're ripping out the tens of thousands of dollars. We had drywall work that had been done. We had to repair plumbing and electricity from when they had literally ripped out the kitchen without a permit, the entire kitchen. The bathrooms had to be gutted with the issues they were having. The sellers were the ones that pointed out to us, oh, you got to do this before you can get that appraisal closed. Oh, you got to do this, you got to do this. And the list grew. And they knew exactly what we were doing. I had emails confirming. They, in fact, wanted me to pass along to the appraiser their comps that they pulled. The sellers pulled comps because they wanted to make sure that the appraiser knew how much the house would be valued at once all of our work was done. They listed it all and put it all in an email and sent over these comps and said, hey, send this out to the appraisers so that we can make sure the value is high enough, right? So these people knew what was going on. Shady as all get out. The judge in the case, the fill-in judge, I don't remember what his name is. I'd have to look. Somebody's asking me on YouTube who the judge was. At any rate, so I let them know. I called the chief of the building department here in Ormond Beach, same city that I'm in now. Talked to him. I mean, they knew exactly what was going on. I gave them copies of the contract that said we are the ones that had to and had the right to finish the projects, that the sellers were supposed to have pulled the permits, yada, yada. So they knew exactly what was going on. But despite that, they allowed the sellers to do substantial work to the house because they have crews of people showing up there and they have a 22-foot dumpster that they're filling up multiple times while we're still in litigation over this. And the city said, oh, well, no, we're not going to get involved with that. We'll just see how things play out with your lawsuit. Meanwhile, we had filed a counter complaint, but I'm like, are you serious? So you're going to enforce it against us in the house, but you didn't enforce it against the sellers before we got involved or after, now that they have temporary possession of the property. You're going to just let them do whatever they want without a permit. Not a single permit was pulled until our lawsuit was basically resolved. So anyway, that's an equal protection violation right then and there. Oh, and keep in mind, there's 3 things they're trying to go after us right now for, relating to our fence that we've put in, to the pavers that we've put down, and to we have 2 shipping containers, not old nasty beat up ones, but nice brand new 1-trip containers that match the color that the house will be, and they'll be even repainted and stuff as we're continuing. Anyway, so they're saying that we can't have those, right? And our fence we can't have without a permit. It's got to be this and that and whatever. Keep in mind, these exact sellers live not that far from us, right on A1A, Beachfront Avenue, right? Atlantic Ave is what it's called here. They live right there, and they just happen to have a fence that totally violates the city code, and they've been doing work on it in between the hurricanes and whatnot, and they don't have a single permit pulled. So the same sellers of the last house we were trying to buy that subsequently settled saying, nope, just give us our deposit back. We just want to be done with you monstrous people. Yeah, so they got to remodel that house as they saw fit without a permit, and they get to do whatever they want to their house without a permit. But the city is going to try to enforce permitting issues against us at that other house and then against us here at this house. Does that sound fair to you? No, I know life isn't fair, but just in the general scheme of things, no. Any kindergartner will go, that's not fair. It's not. So that kind of stuff, I prove to them I will show this one. I just laid out for them what happened with that other situation and how the city screwed up, and took about a page and a half. But I let them know that it was a clear violation of our right to equal protection of the law. No doubt about it. So, however, and this is the part that you may very well have an easier chance of relating to your situation if your city government is violating your right against equal or for equal protection of the law. So there's other neighbors involved. So switch back to the other one here. The city is trying to enforce these code provisions and permitting, saying we can't have our shipping containers at all. And if we did, they couldn't be right up to the property line. We can't put in our fence unless it meets their specific requirements, which they didn't even specify to me. And we have a permit and pay the fee. We can't put down pavers, which would help with a lot of different things, mind you. We can't put down pavers in areas that we can't even grow grass. In the front yard, adjacent to our little driveways, can't put down pavers, and we have to have a permit, and it can't be within 7 feet of the property line. What? This is only a quarter of an acre. I mean, we're not dealing with acres and acres, and so yeah, no problem. We'll just come in. It's my property. I can put pavers down on my property in a way that's not harming anybody else. Water, there's no, not even an allegation that we've caused water to run off on a neighboring property. It's not even an allegation that we've done anything wrong with our fence, that it was, constructed poorly and it's falling apart. In fact, our fence is the only fence on the entire beach side that stayed up with not a single part ripped off. We had Hurricane Ian tear us up around here. Entire houses between Hurricane Ian and Hurricane Nicole, entire houses were ripped to shreds and thrown into the ocean. Almost everybody's fence was broken or ripped in some way, shape, or form. We're talking wood fences, chain link fences, white vinyl PVC fences, fences that were put up by the AAA fence company. I mean, you name it, all up and down beachside here, fences are ripped up out of the ground. Neighbors, after and in between the two hurricanes, came up to us. Oh my gosh, look at your fence. This is amazing. They're like laughing and amazing. They're like, oh my gosh. I mean, neighbors that we don't even know, people that live a little bit farther out from us would come up and go, holy cow, you go anywhere and it's devastation and your fence is still standing. Wow, you guys did a great job. And I'm like, yeah, this is the fence the city says I got to take down. No. At any rate, so they want us to, remove all of our stuff, or at the very least, they've also said that everything needs to be 7.5 feet in from the property line. However, they want me to have permits for all that, but there's been entire gut jobs, remodeling projects done, full remodels on several houses in the area since we've been at this house just a little over a year. No permits were pulled for those, but that's okay. Fences. They don't like my fence, but most fences around here are not to code, and most of them don't have a permit. But I have to have one. We actually have a fence code, for example, that says they cannot be in disrepair. They have to be kept up in good working order. Exactly, if you replace something or a part on it or whatever, it has to be put back into the same condition as when it was put in brand new. You also can't use certain materials in building a fence by code. This is what they're saying. And visibility. So you can't have a 6-foot fence in your front yard unless it is totally visible, like it's more of like a very thin lattice or something like that, a decorative thing that you could easily see in. I don't know why, but anyway, that's what the code says. Well, virtually every fence around here violates at least one of those, and that was even before the hurricane. Since the hurricane, and fences are just all over the place. Yeah, there's a lot more of them in disrepair. So fences without permits, like I mentioned, before and after hurricanes, there's a house that I could see through the backyard of my neighbor across the street. We saw that their fence was like ripped all to shreds. A wood fence was ripped all to shreds in the first hurricane this year. And it's a house that, by the way, a cop for Ormond Beach either lives at or parks at every single day. So they know. And Anyway, that particular house now has a brand new vinyl fence. Huh. You need permits for that, supposedly. Anyway, sheds that are not to code. So two things. Like I said, the city has told me that we can't have our shipping containers here. We have two 20-foot shipping containers. We moved from an area where we had a huge basement, finished basement, or semi-finished basement. Not a scuzzy old one, though. And a huge 2.5 car garage and a shed and this and that. And of course, we have nothing. We have a much smaller house. We have no garage, no basement, and sheds. I can show you in a minute what the typical sheds look like after a hurricane here. You know, those expensive plastic ones you can get at Sam's Club or Walmart or Amazon or whatever. Those don't last too long here. In fact, I'm going to go to that real quick here. So I talked about the full remodels. By the way, in terms of proving, how do you prove that they are violating your right to equal protection of the law? It's simple. I gave them examples of full house, several examples that I know for a fact were fully remodeled. And I even, while I was preparing this, a couple days before I submitted it, we were on our way home from church riding our bikes, and I was like, look at that. Let me take a picture, because there is a 20-foot dumpster in someone's driveway here, and their roof is clearly having issues. And they're at least redoing the whole roof. Not a single permit pulled for that house. But the city is going to come after me. All right. So take pictures. This is talking about the fences of different differing types, and I can't even think today that they're in disrepair. This 3 different types of fences, and they're violating the ordinance about visibility because when it's closed, it covers up the front to this particular house. But they're all in disrepair. And look at this, fences totally blown over right here, blown over right there. This is the fence I was telling you about that totally was ripped out during Hurricane Ian. This is another one. It's just common, right? A typical fence. We did not see, and let me put it this way. In all of Beachside, we did not see any other fence, in as many as we looked at, that was entirely intact after Hurricane Ian. We saw none. So, except for ours. Okay, so then I talked about the sheds. So they're saying we can't have shipping containers. Well, let's first look at that here. Look at that. I don't know if you guys can tell. That's a picture of a few streets down where there's not only one, but 2 of the exact same color and exact same size and shape of shipping containers that we have with the same kind of layout. So I can't have shipping containers, but other people can. This is just an example. This is just stuff we literally came across. We weren't hunting for it. It just came across. We're like, oh, look at that. There is, let's see here. Okay. Oh, and I wanted to show you this. You want to see what a shed, a normal expensive shed, looks like after a hurricane here on Beachside? Well, those plastic ones, they fold, they rip, they're torn to shreds, they fly around the neighborhood. So here's a picture. My neighbors across the street, 3 of them in a row, all their sheds totally gone, totally demolished in the hurricane. So anyway, take pictures. Equal protection is one of the easiest things, and don't be afraid. This is the actual thing I served them with. This is what went to the city. So some people are thinking, gosh, you know, pictures or graphics or things like that are not very professional, or you can't use them in legal documents. Hell yeah, you can. And you should. A picture says 1,000 words, right? So what about, they're saying that I can't, even if my shipping containers were allowed to stay, they can't be on the property line. They can't be right up to the property line. They have to be 7.5 feet away. Why? Why would mine have to be? I listed 33 other properties just in a walking distance, a very short walking distance from my home, that have sheds on the property line. Shed on the property line. When they're telling me I can't have mine there. this is something you can do. And actually, we took quite a few pictures here. It was harder to be able to figure out how we could take pictures of some of these because we're not going onto somebody's property. We're standing on a sidewalk. But look at that. That shed clearly on the property line, so much so that its little overhang here goes over the fence of the neighboring property. I'm assuming for water runoff. This fence, or this shed, is right up against that fence. That one is just demolished. Anyway, okay, so that gives just an example. But once I needed to go to Google Maps, actually the city's website, as far as double checking, did these houses have permits for their sheds? Then the city's website, and yours probably will too, most of them do, many of them do, I will say that. It links to some sort of GIS mapping, or in this instance, it linked to Google Maps. So when I was going to get the exact addresses for places that we had pictures for, I happened to see, well, shoot, it's showing me right on Google Maps in aerial view. You can see the property lines and you can see where the sheds are. So I was easily, in a matter of minutes, able to look up just within a short walking distance from my house where there are 33 other houses that have one of these on their property line. Can't enforce a certain law or ordinance against one person if you're not going to enforce it equally. Okay, so what about pavers? Well, again, here they're telling me I have to have a permit, and I have all these that are not above ground. Sorry, I'm looking at what was put up here. Although I completely agree with you, I believe that pavers that are not above ground and not permanent are excluded from permit requirements. 10 TP, I don't know if I'm saying that right. They are, that's their comment here on YouTube, saying that in certain situations, if pavers are not permanent, they're excluded from permit requirements. They're actually not, according to Ormond Beach's Land Development Code. In fact, I pointed out in here, the Ormond Beach Land Development Code is entirely unenforceable because it literally says if you want to use your land in any way, shape, or form, you have to go get a permit. If you want to pick your nose in your backyard, you have to get a permit from Ormond Beach. If you want to pull weeds out of the front yard, you have to get a permit. If you want to put up a little temporary soccer goal in your backyard for your kids to play, you have to get a permit. And there's other parts that say that anytime you want to have a permit and a land use permit, you also have to have, the architectural plans. I forget what the wording is. But anyway, different things. You have to basically pay an architect or an engineer to come out and do all the schematics and put everything together for you. That's literally what it says. Oh, and here's the kicker. And you might find things like this in your own city code. This one is actually pretty common. In our neighborhood, it was built in the 1940s. My house was built in 1949. Very few of these houses have garages. It was built as a vacation community originally, and most houses simply don't have garages. And the way they're built, according to city code, you cannot fit a garage on either side because of setbacks and things like that. So at any rate, the city code here says you have to have a garage. It doesn't say anything about being grandfathered in. You have to have a garage. And there's a part that says if you apply for any kind of permit for any reason whatsoever for your property, then you have to be in compliance with the city code already. And for any part that you're not in compliance, say, for example, you don't have a garage, and you are, seeking to lay pavers or put a fence in or whatever, you can't even apply for those waivers, or excuse me, you can't even apply for those permits for doing the other things unless you first go to your zoning board of appeals or the appropriate analogous body and get a permit or get a variance issued. You have to go through the whole variance process for the fact that your house doesn't have a garage before you can file to get the permits that they're trying to say you need. There's a lot of stupidity in city codes. You can find it, but even if you can't, that kind of stuff is okay. The equal protection violations are some of the easiest to prove, guys. Some of the easiest. So again, Our code here says you can't use stone. You can only use certain things: pavers, asphalt, concrete. Those are the basics, right? It specifically says you cannot use stone as ground cover adjacent to your, to your driveways, or to extend your driveways or whatever. You can't have it as a parking surface. You can't basically lay your whole front yard in stone. You can't do it, apparently. Guess what? I was able to show, this happens to be the house where the cop sits and parks every day, but stone, they ripped up their whole yard. There's not an ounce of grass anywhere left. It is just stone everywhere. That clearly violates the ordinance. They didn't have a permit for it, but they want me. You can almost see, in fact, yep, that's my house. You can see where the hand is. It's way back there beyond, it's the third one back. You can hardly tell. But anyway, it is, they want me to have a permit for pavers that are allowed, right? But this house doesn't have to have a permit for their stone, which can't be used. And by the way, the city also knows about it because there were 4 other permits pulled this year for that house that the city would have had to come out and do inspections. And so they would have seen what was being done, and they never said a word. That was allowed to continue. And this is also one of the houses that had a fence totally torn down, which has now been fully replaced by a vinyl fence, which last I checked had no permits. But at any rate, taking pictures. So that is the biggest thing. And I've been able to pull way more pictures than that since then. I just threw what I had in there that day and finally had to go and vote because it was election day. So you can fight back. You can do it. If they're trying to say you need a permit first, there's a lot of ways to fight that. One of the easiest is equal protection. You can see how many other people are parking on the grass when the code says you can't do that for parking area. Well, if other people don't have to have an approved parking surface, then why do I? Or if they're putting stone in and they're not allowed to have it, then I should be able to lay what I want in my yard. If they're not using permits or pulling permits to put their pavers down, why should I have to? That is an easy thing to prove. Pictures, they're worth 1,000 words. Don't underestimate the power that you can have in something like that. So is it, back to our true or false question of the day, is it complicated? Or let me put it this way. It's very complicated to prove your local government is violating your right to equal protection. True or false? Again, I'm going to encourage you to go jump on Twitter, Telegram, LinkedIn, Truth Social, YouTube, or our website, restorefreedomkh.com, to be able to fill that out. But the answer, of course, is false. We are all guaranteed equal protection of the law, and it's as simple as that. So if your municipality is enforcing a law against you that they don't enforce against others in the city, even if they are enforcing it against you and maybe this person over here, but not this one, that one, or this one, it's okay. It doesn't have to be only you. But if they are unequally enforcing a law in your city, that violates your right to equal protection. The same is true for cities that refuse to enforce a law against others that would protect you or your rights. So it might be that they're trying to enforce something against you that they don't enforce against others. But what about if you are, like as we were trying to get them to enforce the no work orders against the sellers of the house that we were buying and were in litigation over. And the city said, oh no, we're not going to, they could keep working without a permit. That's fine for now. Or just let it get sorted out some other way. No, because that violated our right to equal protection of the law. Emphasis on protection. Okay, so I am looking here. Yeah, so I don't know if Lori was putting any of these up. The super sexy, very intelligent Mr. Henry commented that the city, their response to all this is, but we can't keep track of every violation of the code. That might be their response, but too bad for them. They could have less code if they don't want to enforce it. If their job is too onerous, then reduce the amount of codes you have on the books to enforce, and then you'll have the manpower you need to be able to enforce it all. All right. It is only false. Okay, so here's the thing. The Liberty Cause giving me a hard time today, saying that the answer here is only false if the city will recognize that their laws are unconstitutional or unenforceable. No, the proof part is where it's easy. How much legwork you have to do, how much fighting you have to do to be able to continue to lay your pavers or your fence or do whatever, that's up to you. I chose the I'm going to do what the law allows me to do approach, and you're not going to enforce anything against me here that you wouldn't enforce on our other house or against any of these other neighbors. So we've done that. Our pavers are laid. Our shipping containers were already here. I mean, I actually checked the code for that, and there was nothing about shipping containers. So whatever. But they're here. They're there. They're not going to get moved. I told the city when they called me about this initially, before they tried to bring me into court about it, I told them, I'm not moving those things. Paid a lot of money for them. I don't have a garage. I got to have a place that's hurricane proof where stuff can be stored. And I'm not the only one. Okay. So well, and okay, so here the Liberty Cause is saying, you know, that I can basically that the city's approach in many respects is going to be, well, just sue us then. You know, your proof, that's not really proof. You know, just sue us if you have a problem. That's the thing. We talked several weeks ago, and I think it was actually when we were talking about appeals or gag orders. I think is when we were talking about gag orders. The government will try to do there's different things. Are they trying to make you do something? Are they trying to stop you from doing something? Are they failing to do something that they're supposed to do? Now, really, if you think about it, the easiest one to defend is if they're trying to stop you from doing something that you want to do, like putting pavers on your property. If you legally are in the right and they are wrong, the Constitution or state law or whatever protects your ability to do what you're doing. But the city code might say something that's unconstitutional, or maybe they're just making stuff up and the code doesn't really say that. Either way, you can just do what you're doing. I don't have to sue them. I can. I showed them all the reasons why I can and the laws they broke, but I don't have to. I can keep living the way that I'm living, and if they don't like it, they have to bring me to court, and then it's game on. For sure. So again, just think about that. In how is your government violating your right to equal protection? Is it something that you could just keep doing your thing and not violating the rights of others, just exercising your own liberties, and then make them have to make the first move if they think they want to stop you from exercising your rights in the way that you are lawfully allowed to do so? Again, this has been, I never thought we'd go an hour and 45 minutes on this topic, but we did. If you want more information on this, we'll do other stuff. We're going into the next year. We're going to have, now that we got a lot of the technical glitches out, we have which platforms we post to and go live on and all that stuff sorted out. I mean, it's been countless hours of behind the scenes work for me and Lori and Mike on this. We will have some better more organized, I guess. We have a flow to it going into this next year. It's going to be great. We're going to have a lot of things, a lot of guests on the show. I will be continuing to be a guest on other people's shows and podcasts and radio shows and things like that. But specifically for this topic, make sure to check back tomorrow for our Wednesday Way to Get Involved challenge. Check out that Constitution segment recap video and slideshow that will be shared on Thursday, as well as our Friday's freedom fighting tools that will be posted to all of our social media networks and, of course, to restorefreedomkh.com/updates. Please make sure that you, let me see if I can throw Lori back on there. Throw Lori on. Take that off and take that off. Okay. So, oh, I can't hear you, Lori.
Oops, I was muted. Did you see that was a new comment?
Oh, no. What was that? I thought it was one I had up there.
That's okay.
The problem is they issue a continuing fine and file a lien on your homestead, and then you or I cannot sell with encumbered title. Well, for us, this is our forever home. We're going to retire in this home. We're going to die in this house. So it would piss me off, and I'm going to fight him on it. But again, it's not going to do anything in many respects. But as far as them filing a lien again or whatever they're doing, again, that's still something that they have to initiate, and then you can respond. And if you have all your stuff, your ducks in a row, and you're good to go, you have your evidence. This is one of the strongest and easiest arguments to make. If it's actually happening, you can document it. In more cases than not, you can easily just go around. Again, I'm talking about land use ordinances, which are easier to see than some of the others. But John, I so wish you lived in Montana. So I'm going to do whatever I can to help everybody in every state. I know that some of you are out there watching from other countries even. We've had people from all around the world write me letters calling me the American badass and things of that nature, and I will continue to fight for freedom. But you in Montana, I'm telling you, you don't need an attorney. You don't need any kind of person advocating for you. You need you advocating for you, because I wouldn't trust most attorneys. It's just a fact. It's just, people call me all the time. Hey, can you give me a referral for this? It's often I have to go, no, I honestly can't, because I wouldn't know who I could wholeheartedly put my referral behind. It's just unfortunate. Not that all attorneys are bad, but so many of them are. And
he can keep in mind that while you might be in your briefs and whatnot, the documents you're sharing may be referring to either Florida or Michigan specifically. That's going to give him the idea of, okay, what do I need to look for in Montana statutes? Do a search for keywords and stuff like that. It just is going to take work to learn.
Yes.
But it's a lot easier with her examples and references that kind of make you think, oh, I guess that does apply in my situation. I should use that.
And that's exactly right. And that's why I gave you guys the literal documents that I filed. I gave you the complaint, that first one we were looking at from the city of Belding. That's exactly what I filed in court. I actually gave you another document, a motion or something that I had filed later on in the same case. That would have some good arguments for you in there, but it gives you an example, even if you're in another state, and if you can't find a format that you could trust, use what I've sent you. Okay. It's at least something. And then if they want to modify it, or they want to say it has to be a certain font, or it has to have certain spacing or whatever, then at least they have to give you that notification. Right. But it'll give you at the very least that beginning, where you can, what the format looks like, how to lay things out, what kinds of words, copy whole sentences, whole paragraphs right out of the documents that I've shared with you, because that's why I'm sharing them with you, so that you can fight for your freedom. Because if I'm talking about the Equal Protection Clause in the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, that applies to me the same way that it applies to you, right? Same thing for your right to free speech, or your right to information under state laws. If you're in Michigan and you want to look at that Belding complaint, shoot, there is a lot in there. There's a lot of stuff in there that will help you all across the country, because I have federal statutes, I have federal cases, I have federal, U.S. Constitution stuff in there. But again, if it's a state law you're looking for, at least you can start to see some of the terminology. You can start to think of things that you can search for when you go to your own state legislature's website and you're trying to recreate this for your own purposes, right? But by all means, save it, download it, copy it, use it how you can. Fill in your own pictures. I mean, use it as a template. For those of you that are in a different situation, you're not quite at the stage of filing a lawsuit. use the format of the response that I just sent to the city of Ormond Beach on election day, just last month. Still haven't heard from them yet. But my papers are there, and my fence and my shipping containers. So, we'll see what they say, but just use what you can out of there and believe that you can do it, and don't necessarily think that you have to have an attorney, because not all attorneys. How many attorneys do you think you could hire that would do that zealous of advocacy, do that much research? It's just not going to happen. It's not even practical to have a law firm even know about all the equal protection violations that are happening right around you, because unless they're your next door neighbor, they don't know. They don't see it. I just saw 2 more houses last night. Emma and I were driving to the YMCA to go to a Zumba class, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've never noticed. These are 2 that are right on the river here. One of the main drags, one of the main roads here on Beachside. And, where we are, it's, there's the mainland, and then there's river or intercoastal, and then it's beachside land, and then it's the ocean. So very short distance of beachside, the width is from east to west. But anyway, so down at the end of it, right where it meets the water on the riverside, man, my phone is blowing up and my timer ended, so notifications are getting through. But at any rate, I just noticed driving by, like I said last night, I was like, holy cow, there are 2 huge houses here that are probably worth $1 million or more. And they're side by side, and they have these long driveways that are, you've guessed it, not an approved material. They violate city code. They are stone. You can't have that according to the city. So if I can, if I'm supposed to have a permit for my pavers and my parking area, then those houses should have to have a permit for their parking materials and their parking area. And they can't, because that kind of material is not allowed long-term in Ormond Beach, supposedly, right? So anyway, just keep your eyes open, and don't just, lean on an attorney or depend on an attorney to fight things like this for you. You got this. Use what I've given you. Go to my resources page. You'll see examples of different motions I've filed and everything. So again, even if you're in another state, you could start with it as a template and go from there. So it is weird. It showed some weird graphic on my side over your face, Lori, for a second. I'm not sure if other people saw it or not. Anything, let's see. I see a bunch of people talking back and forth. Is there anything that I had to address that I didn't?
Not in this video, no.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for everyone who has joined us today, especially those of you who are commenting on the social media platforms. We love the participation and engagement. We love to make it more of a conversation. As much as I really hate public speaking, I would much rather be speaking in front of a crowd where we can have that actual personal engagement than speaking to people on the internet. And I can't see what your reactions are or what your questions are real time and things like that. So anyway, I appreciate your participation. Please make sure that you hit that share button, that like button, that you subscribe, and you hit the notifications to make sure you're signed up to get notifications when we go live or have videos posted, that kind of thing. Please make sure to tell your friends and family about the work that we are doing. Just tell somebody. If you can't remember anything else and you're out and about and you're in a conversation, tell somebody, just Google Restore Freedom. If they Google Restore Freedom, they'll find me. Trust me, I've told that to people and they don't believe me. Especially people down here that don't know of all the work that I've been doing these last few years. And I say, hey, I guarantee it's okay. I don't have a business card, but you Google Restore Freedom, and I guarantee you I'll be the first thing you'll see. You'll see me, and they'll be like, nah. And then I've actually asked people to do that. In fact, the chair of our county board here, I asked him to do that, and he didn't believe me. And I saw the look on his face when he pulled it up, and he's like, oh, that's you? Restore Freedom? Yeah, that's me. So anyway, please make sure to spread the word, and please consider donating. This year was the worst of all of our years for receiving donations, and it's surprising to me because many more people were out of work in 2020, yet donations were rolling in at a much steadier and increased rate than they are now. So even if you have only $5 to donate to our cause, please consider doing so. You can donate through a variety of ways right on our website, restorefreedomkh.com. There is the support us tab. Otherwise, if you just go to restorefreedomkh.com/donate, you can see ways that you can donate to specific projects that we're doing, like this, keeping this podcast going, or keeping our website up and running, or our weekly newsletter going. Or you could donate via different methods if you need to use PayPal, which hopefully you're getting away from. But anyway, PayPal or credit card if you want to send a check because you don't like doing any of that online stuff. All the information and ways that you can donate are on there. So please do check it out. Cash App, all that stuff, Venmo, all that stuff is available right on there. And of course, if you just go to that support tab, you can see all kinds of other ways that you can support what we're doing. You can buy our window decals, our pop sockets, like this beautiful Restore Freedom pop socket, official pop socket brand, and brought to us by a company that was local to us right in West Michigan before we moved. So anyway, lots of ways to support us. Don't forget about us. And I thought I had the screen up for the days that we're off. This is our last full episode of the year. So we'll do some postings and some smaller videos between now and the end of the 2022 year. But we will be back with a January 10th, I believe. Is that right, Lori?
Mm-hmm.
January 10th will be our next live full episode. It'll be a great season, and we look forward to having you then. Please, like I said, stay tuned between now and then because we will have some stuff that we'll be posting, but our typical weekly stuff, just the videos and whatnot, won't be shared between now and then because I do have to try to finish this website for you guys, get my new Constitution app up and running, get some interviews and things scheduled for guests for next season, next year, and a lot of the other work that we're in the works in this freedom fight for. So, and I actually want to see my kids a little bit and my husband during Christmas break. Go figure. So I might take a whole day away from this work, but we'll see. So anyway, so thank you so much for joining us today, like I said. And if you don't see me face to face on Thursday for our Constitution segment recap video, I do want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. And just remember the reason for the season, all that Jesus did for us, and that we always have something to be thankful for. So please try to focus on that joy and all the turmoil of everything else we're going through these days. So thank you so much, everyone. I'm constitutional attorney Katherine Henry, and we look forward to seeing you on Thursday.